Hey guys, version 5 of 86box, the emulator for old computers, has just been released. So it's a great opportunity to do a video, to check out what's new, share the love, and maybe you also get inspired to check it out, build some retro virtual systems and play some of these classic old games. The very first big upgrade is the 86box VM Manager. You can see it right here. You can configure several virtual machines, and that's what I've been doing last evening. I set up all these machines, and all of them have a personal meaning to me. They sort of document my personal retro journey, starting with my first 386 machine that I've put together here. We've got an ISA Cirrus Logic video card, a 25 megahertz 386 with 4 megs of RAM, 500 meg hard drive. I'm using a Sound Blaster 2. That's my very first sound card. I never could afford a Roland MT32 or CM32L, so that's why now I can emulate it. And well, let's run the emulator and see what it looks like. So we click on this button here, run the emulation, and off it goes. Now there are a couple of keyboard shortcuts I want to point out. The first one is when you click inside the emulator, the mouse disappears. You need to press Ctrl and End to release the mouse again. And the other one is toggling full screen. Ctrl Alt page up goes into full screen mode. So let's play a game. There are many games that work on a 386. One of my favorite ones is Monkey Island 2. And now with the Roland music. And here we are in the game. The music is really well done. It uses the iMuse system that dynamically changes the music as you wander from room to room. It is really well done. Let's release the mouse and we toggle back into window mode. Here we go. And a couple of other things I want to point out. Down here in the toolbar, we've got icons for the floppy, the CD-ROM drive. There's one for the hard disk. They've got indicator lights for activity, and you can also mount images. And this is new. It shows the display refresh rate. This is, well, for me, I like these technical aspects. It's really nice to see. And we've got indicators for num lock, scroll lock, and caps lock. And another feature that is new, if you click on view, we can change the render to OpenGL 3.0, and then we get some render options. Here we have the shader manager, and we can click on add and load shaders to get effects for CRT emulation or scan lines. There are many to choose from. I would love to hear if you have some experience. Maybe you've played around with some of them and can recommend one. Let's try this one and see what it looks like. There you go. It definitely looks different. This might not be everyone's cup of tea, but it's a feature that many of you appreciate and like. So it's really wonderful seeing this in 86box. And another game that I vividly remember playing on the 386 was Wing Commander 2, because this was the very first game, I believe, that had a speech pack. So you could buy a speech pack. It came on a bunch of floppy disks, and then during the introduction sequence there was digital speech, and having a Sound Blaster, that was really something to experience back in the day. Here we go. It should be right about now.
I will speak with Prince Drakkar alone. Guards, you are dismissed.
Absolutely amazing, and this really takes me back. The speed of the emulator is also very accurate. So if you configure a 386 with a 25 megahertz processor and we're running some benchmarks, you will get sort of the performance that you can expect on a real machine. So here I'm running the famous 3D Bench VGA benchmark. Let's have a look at the final score. 8.1 is the result, and this is perfect for speed-sensitive games like Wing Commander or Test Drive 3. I will put some links down below in the video description if you want to check out this emulator. Version 5 is the latest stable release. If you want to try out daily builds, you can also get that from the GitHub website. You will also need some ROM files, and this is the official ROM set for version 5.0. You download that and put it in a ROM subdirectory. There's also excellent documentation, and I recommend everyone that wants to check out this emulator to have a look here. It's got very detailed information, especially for the settings. So here is where you find everything to do with the machine, the display, the sound, the storage devices, and so on. So definitely read the documentation, see if you can find an answer to your question here first before you reach out on Discord, for example. There is a very thriving Discord community with lots of people sharing their findings with this project, and I encourage you to join and contribute. This page has announcements about some of the features of version 5, and we've covered a few of them, and we will refer back to this document as we go forward. One upgrade is the mouse input. It mentions here that it's meant to be much smoother, especially if you have a faster machine with a high refresh rate monitor. But I must say, I still think the mouse input is a little bit slow and jerky, both under DOS and Windows 98. But maybe I'm missing something here. If you know what's going on, or if you have some input to share, please do so in the comments. Let's check out the next machine, the 486 DX4-100. This was my very first custom built PC. So the 386 was a high screen Vobis. It was built from the factory, but this one here I built myself. And now, of course, I can deck it out to my liking, because back in the day, you know, I had a no-name video card and just a Sound Blaster 16, but now we can have the Diamond Stealth 4064, and we can have the Sound Blaster or Gold, and of course we can have a nice general MIDI device with the SF2 sound font format, and the emulator emulates the OR synth really well. We will check it out. So let's launch it and have a look. Here we are, it's loading up. I've installed the Sound Blaster drivers. Now the 486 DX4, in my opinion, is the right processor for playing Doom. Many people believe it's the DX266, but I think that processor is still underpowered for Doom, especially some of the more complicated maps. Let's run the setup and check out the emulation of the Sound Blaster or synthesizer. That sounded pretty good, but we can make Doom sound so much better by using general MIDI. And 86 box supports the Fluid Synth MIDI synthesizer, and we can load sound fonts in the SF2 format. So let's check it out. That sounds much nicer. There are of course lots of other games that we can play, but let's move on to the next machine, which is a Pentium 200. Now, I had a Pentium 133 and I always wanted the 200 megahertz model, but it was disproportionately expensive. And the 166, I didn't see it worthy of an upgrade. So now let's build a Pentium with 200 megahertz. Insane amount of RAM for such a machine, but look, we can afford it now. It's all virtual. We've got the Trio 64. It's a great video card, even for Windows 98, and a Voodoo graphics card. So this is a PCI add-on board. And let's have a look at the options. Especially for the Voodoo card, there are quite a few options you can configure. For example, how much memory. So you can build cards that actually don't quite exist. You can also change it to a Voodoo 2, which is the next machine we will check out render threads. You can have it in SLI, that's more for the Voodoo 2, and there's a screen filter, but this one is very demanding, so I'm gonna leave that off. And what else? We've got a 20 gigabyte hard drive, still using the Sound Blaster All. For the early Windows game, this is perfectly fine. So let's run it and have a look. Here we are booting into Windows 98. Now, Windows 95 might be more suitable, but I see Windows 98 as the Windows 95 Service Pack 2 release. It runs a little bit slower on these older machines, but it has more updates and it's more stable. Let's go full screen, and there's one game that I really want to showcase, which is Tomb Raider with the 3dfx patch, because that's what I experienced back in the day. And when I saw this logo the first time on the screen and then the game with accelerated graphics, I knew a new era of PC gaming has just arrived. So let's launch a new game. So this is running at 640 by 480. We even have a frame counter here. It's locked at 30 FPS and it's emulated really well. The higher gamma setting, you might notice that this game is brighter than the software rendered version. All that is just like on the real 3dfx Voodoo, and it runs like a dream. When you saw that back in the day at 640 by 480, compared to most other DOS games, they were running at 320 by 200, and of course Tomb Raider was popular on the PlayStation as well. But the 3dfx Voodoo is just, it's such a magical experience, and anyone who was around that time and saw the game in action, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Other upgrades worth mentioning are several new machines, and if you scroll down, we get an idea of what's going on. So here we can see machine types for different processors. All of these have been added, so there's a lot to digest. Hardware for graphics, we can see here something interesting like the Banshee, I believe, Voodoo Banshee rendering glitches got fixed, and we have input devices for your joysticks and some new sound devices. For example, we've got the Sound Blaster 16 cards. They are now working in OS2, which is interesting, and we have added support for a bunch of new sound cards. The Ensoniq Audio PCI, for example, Covox Voice Master, and the Goldfinch. So quite a few exotic sound cards are now part of 86 box. And some other news is, well, back in the day, before the IDE ATAPI CD-ROM, there were some proprietary interfaces like from Sony and Philips and also Panasonic. And this Panasonic interface recently in the emulation community that has made some news with the Pico Gus. It's now simulating a virtual CD-ROM drive by using the Panasonic interface. I'm actually planning a video on covering that. And also, if you have disk images in the MDS MDF format used by Alcohol 120 and Daemon Tools, well, it is now supported. Let's go to the next machine, a Pentium 2 300, and this is the same CPU I had back in the day. I regret a little bit that purchase because very shortly after buying this processor, the successor came out, with this one here, with a 100 megahertz frontside bus and much lower power consumption. But, well, that's just how it is back in the day. I had a 3dfx Voodoo 2. Well, here we can configure SLI. So that is also something a lot of us have never experienced, and we can do it now in a virtual machine. So here I've configured a 3dfx Voodoo 2 and I ticked the SLI box. So we will check out if that all works as expected. Let's hit the run button and off we go. Pay attention to this little percentage figure at the top. This shows you how well the emulation is running. It's doing a good job at the beginning, hitting the 100% in a stable fashion. If you hear the audio stutter and this percentage figure goes down, then it means that the system you're trying to emulate is a little bit too demanding. You might have to change out to a lower CPU or even a completely older system, or your host machine, the machine you're running the emulator on is just too slow and you have to upgrade to a faster CPU. This emulator is really demanding. This is the processor that I'm using. It's a fairly capable processor in a mini PC, the B-Link SER9. It's the Ryzen AI9 HX 370 with 12 cores, 24 threads. But yeah, you will see once we go to the high end, emulating faster machines, just how demanding this emulator is. Also, I'm capturing everything with OBS, but it's only at 1080p 60 frames, and I believe it only uses around 5 to 10% of the processor. So here we are. Let's go full screen. This is the Pentium 2 300. The Voodoo 2 cards. Look at that nice background. And we can go into the properties, and then under the Voodoo tab, we can click on system information, and we can see here scan line interleave detected. Not only do you get faster performance, we can also run higher resolutions. One game I clearly remember playing on my Pentium 2 was Tomb Raider 2. But now with the SLI system, well, look at that. I'm choosing here the Voodoo 2 driver, and I can select 1024x768, which is a insane resolution for a system back in those days. I mean, when you look at the consoles, PlayStation and so on, 320x240, and on the PC, 1024x768, it was a huge upgrade. Here we are in the menu. Let's go and launch a new game. I went back to window mode so we can keep an eye out on the percentage number at the top right, and at least in this game, seems to be doing a good job despite running OBS in the background. I'm not hearing any audio stuttering, and the graphics are smooth. Multitasking, talking and playing the game is a little bit of a challenge though, but you get the idea. The game is running well. You could have seen now there was a little bit of a render error. Let's go back to this part. Don't think that was my, right here, So I've read online that the Voodoo emulation is, well, still requires a bit of work. So this is an aspect I do hope gets some more attention in the future. I understand there's demand for video cards like the Riva 128 and other ones, but my personal take is that the Voodoo cards, they kind of do everything. They can do Glide, OpenGL, and DirectX. They're really compatible. I would love for the developers to focus on the Voodoo cards a little bit more and really flesh out the compatibility. And another game I like testing is this one here, Earth 2150, also supporting 1024x768. This is a game I didn't play back in the day, but I watched a few playthroughs and I always wanted to check it out. It's sort of a RTS game with, well, yeah, it's an RTS game basically. But it has a very unique look with really good weather simulation and weather effects. Here we are in the game. This is a training tutorial, I believe. This is a game that's not that super easy to get into without doing the tutorial. And yeah, it's got these 3D graphics where you can zoom in and zoom out, and you can rotate, and yeah, it looks good, and it's definitely something I do want to play eventually in the future. This is also a game from GOG, a digital release that I never could make run on a retro PC, but I've been working on a project on the side to make old games run under Windows 98, and this is one of them. The trick was you need to transplant the registry keys, and then the digital release will run under Windows 98. I'm working on a video. It should hit the channel very soon, in a few weeks, I'm guessing. And finally, let's aim for the stars. I put together what I believe is the fastest machine that you can emulate. Well, it's between the Pentium 2 450 or the Celeron 533. And I believe the Celeron 533 might be a little bit faster. Anyway, it's the most modern option here for socket 370. It's a nice Asus motherboard. So you can see 533 is the highest option. We maxed out the RAM, 512 megabytes. This time for sound, I'm using a PCI sound card. And for the graphics, we're using a Voodoo 3 3500, the compact version. This is one of the cards that I have. It doesn't have that annoying output dongle that the regular 3500 has. And for this virtual machine, pay attention to the percentage here and listen for the sound. You will notice that it stutters and that this percentage figure will go down. So this is a clear sign that this machine is too demanding for the processor that we have. So maybe in the future, when I review some new mini PCs or something like that, maybe I'm going to use 86 box as a CPU benchmark. Here we are in 3D Mark 99 Max. This is pretty much the first benchmark I run on every system that I put together, just to make sure that the drivers are working, that the DirectX is installed, and that there are no issues. So again, we can see here, look at the percentage at the top right corner. It's sitting in the 80s, so it's really struggling to keep up with the emulation. Still, in some situations, you might still want to configure a machine that's a little bit out of reach for your CPU, because a lot of tasks it will do at the full speed, but then when you're running something demanding, it will struggle. Now, also something to point out here is, again, the Voodoo emulation not working that well. We can see the textures flashing here. So again, this is my personal wish that the Voodoo part of the emulator will get some more love, some more resources in the future. Another personal request of mine, or wish for mine, is to see the Voodoo 4 being emulated. That is, in my opinion, the best all-round of the Voodoo cards, because it can also do 32-bit colors and large textures. So guys, this was me checking out the version 5 of 86 box. Thank you to all the people involved in this project, and also all the other community members that I saw on Discord vividly exchanging their new experiences with this version. We had a look at emulating a 386 all the way up to a Celeron 533 in DOS and Windows 98. So you can have many sound cards. Roland emulation is there, sound fonts, Voodoo, which is awesome, Voodoo 2 SLI and Voodoo 3. And in terms of what I observed that doesn't work, the Voodoo emulation definitely needs a bit of more love. And the mouse cursor, I still feel it's a little bit choppy and laggy. I'm running a 120 Hertz monitor, and it should be smoother. At least that's the impression I got when I read the release announcement. I got the impression that it will be a drastic difference. But regardless, amazing work, and I want to hear from you guys. Go online, check it out, download it to your machine, build your favorite retro PC, and let me know what you think of version 5 of 86 box. And that's it for me. I hope you found this video useful. Check links down below in the video description for resources, and that's it from me. I shall see you soon with another one.